Hey guys, Lake Fork Pro Fishing Guide Ronnie Kelley here. April's right around the corner and we had a great March. I want to give you guys kind of an updated report on what's going on in my boat and what's going to go on through the month of April. Right now I'm starting out my mornings two ways. Either A, I'm starting out offshore, or B, I'm starting out up shallow. When we've had some warm weather for about 3 or 4 days, I'll start out deeper in that anywhere from 12 to 20 foot of water. And I'm throwing a Carolina rig. I'm throwing a 3/4 to 1 ounce Lake Fork tungsten weight, and I'm throwing about a 3 to 5 foot leader. And there's 2 baits that I'm throwing on that, and these seem to be great right now. I'm throwing a Lake Fork hopper stick, and I'm throwing a Lake Fork hopper lizard in a 6-inch. The 2 colors that are working out probably the best for me are green pumpkin and green pumpkin with green and purple flake. And I don't know if it's the green and purple flake kind of give them the idea of bluegill, but it really seems to catch some big fish. And so the mornings that it's not as warm and I'm starting out shallow, I'll start out flipping real shallow timber and about 1 to 4 foot of water, even less than a foot of water some mornings if they're really on it. I'm fishing a couple baits shallow, and one of my favorite baits right now shallow is this 5-inch hopper freak. And I'm just Texas rigging this bait, and I'm throwing it on a 3/8 to a 1/4 ounce weight, and I'm throwing it with a 4/0 that Mustad big bite hook, and I have a great hookup ratio with that. I'm also throwing a Lake Fork flipper, and the way I'm throwing this is a little bit different, and I really like this bait. If there's a lot of wind, I can't throw it because of the way I'm throwing it. I'm throwing it on the snitch shaky head from Black Angel Jigs, and what it does is it gives it a little bit more of a lifelike presentation. It stands that bait up a little bit, and with this particular hook that Black Angel uses, the hookup ratio is incredible. So I'm throwing this, especially if I've got anglers that are not super duper experienced angler. With this shaky head, it really does a lot of the work for you. And this is catching really good numbers. One other bait that I'm throwing that really seems to be the ticket for the big fish. You don't catch near as many, but you catch a lot bigger and a lot better fish. And that's the 5-inch hopper worm. And again, I'm Texas rigging this. And sometimes when I'm reeling this in, this happens quite a bit on this bait, I'll have fish chase this bait up to the boat. And that's happened to us several times, and a lot of those are really big fish. But again, I'm Texas rigging this the same way I'm Texas rigging the freak. I'm doing it on about a 1/4 to a 3/8 ounce weight. Some mornings, if it's cloudy and there's a little wind, I'll start out with a buzz bait. I'm throwing the bumper stumper buzz bait, 3/8 to 1/2 ounce, depending on the wind, and a bumper stumper spinner bait. Chartreuse and white have been my best colors, and I'm changing up the blade combinations. Like this morning, I threw a size 5.5 blade, and man, we really did good on that. But other than that, you know, the deep bite in the afternoons is pretty good. I'll throw a Carolina rig or a Black Angel 3/4 ounce football jig, and I'm throwing the green flash and peanut butter and jelly. And on that, I'm throwing this 5-inch hopper freak, guys. I don't know what it is about this hopper freak, but I started throwing this thing really heavy in January on my jigs, and man, I'm going to tell you what, I really seem to catch bigger fish when I throw the hopper freak over the flipper on my jigs. And this has always been my go-to trailer, but I'm catching a lot bigger fish. If I get a good day where it's slick and I got high skies and just, like I said, slick, no wind, I'll go bed fishing. I know a lot of you guys like to come out to Lake Fork this time of year to try to find a big old fish on a bed, and that's something that I love to do, and I enjoy watching people bed fish. So I'm going to show you guys my favorite rig to get a bass off a bed, and I think this will help you guys out a whole lot. The Lake Fork crawl tube, there's no secret here. This is one of the absolute best bed fishing baits, and kind of everybody knows this deal. But what I'm doing is I'm taking a little easy tube rattle, and it doesn't matter. I'm throwing, sometimes I'll throw 1/8 ounce, sometimes I'll throw a 3/16 ounce. But what you want to do is you want to take this crawl tube, and between the little flaps, the pinchers, you want to insert this rattle right in the bottom of it, push it all the way to the top, okay? And then what you're going to do on the weight, I'm throwing a 3/8 ounce weight, just so it'll, and if the beds, if it's a great day and I'm some clear water, I'm fishing that 3 to 5 foot of water for those beds, I'll put a 1/2 ounce weight. But other than that, I'm using a 3/8 ounce Lake Fork tungsten weight. But you take this bait, come through the top with your hook, and on this I'm using a 5/0 Mustad big bite. And then you're going to take that hook and kind of feel around until you feel that hole, and it'll poke through. And then from then on, you just push that tube up there, just like you would any other Texas rig bait. Now, on this 5/0 hook, what I'm doing is I'm just putting it straight through the whole tube, just like that. And then I'm just barely Texposing it, just like this right there. And what that does is that ensures me that the first time that I set the hook on that fish, if he's got that bait, then I'm going to get him. And a lot of people, when they're bed fishing or just flipping in general, they like to peg their weight, and I don't. And the reason I don't is because I like that weight to lay there, and for this bait to be able to move a little bit more freely and give it a little bit more action. But with that rattle, you're gonna have in there, you're gonna have a little bit of rattle, and those bedding fish, they really can't stand that. And one thing I'll do, guys, and I'll give you guys a heads up on this, and you want to make sure you do this. When you're bed fishing, the best way to approach bed fishing is to put your trolling motor on high, shoot down a bank, find you about 3 or 4 fish that look fairly committed. If you see them swim off, watch them and count. If it takes about 10 to 15 seconds for them to come back, you'll probably be able to catch those fish. If it takes over 15 seconds, you're going to have a tough time. But one thing you want to make sure you don't do is when you first spot that bed fish, you don't want to throw that crawl tube in there. You want to go ahead and go on down the bank. Find you something on the bank, whether it be a Coke can, a certain stump, a tree, and mark exactly where that fish is at. So find you 3 or 4, circle around, and come back to that fish. And the first thing you want to do is you want to blind cast to that fish. And I'll do that with a Lake Fork hopper stick with a little split shot on the front of it. And I'll make 4 or 5 casts. And if I'm not getting any kind of action at all from that fish, I'll ease up until I can barely see the fish. And then I'll start to throw the crawl tube in there. And my favorite color on this crawl tube is black neon. I'm not a huge fan of the white or chartreuse or anything like that. I'll throw the greens and the blacks, and it's a little bit more of a natural color, and I think you have a lot easier time catching those fish. And so when I really want to see the bait, I'll throw black neon. If not, then I'm throwing green pumpkin. So hopefully this will help you guys. Something else that I think is a key to success on Lake Fork is a big rod. All of my rods are Falcon rods, and I don't throw anything shorter than a 7.4 when I'm flipping. If I'm flipping close quarters or I'm Carolina rigging, I'm using a 7.4 to a 7.6 heavy action rod, especially bed fishing. And a lot of times when I'm bed fishing, I'm using braid. Other than that, I'm using Seaguar fluorocarbon, which I think is a must for sensitivity, especially on the Carolina rig. And I'm throwing 20 to 25 pound Seaguar and Vizex. So anyways, you guys, April is a spectacular time to come fish out at Lake Fork. Things are going to heat up. These fish are going to get up in groups. They're going to move offshore. The offshore bite's going to get insane. So if you guys get a free day or a free weekend to come out to Lake Fork, please do so. If I can help you in any way or you'd like to come out and fish out of my boat, please give me a call. Check out my website at www.lakeforkprofishingguide.com. Until next time, Ronnie Kelley, and we'll see you on the water.